Good morning, everybody. It is 9 a.m. Tuesday. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus on your Roku, Fire, or Apple TVs. We thank you for always making sure you make this part of your morning routine on the app, and thank you for downloading the app as well. A couple of stories we are following here in the WCNC Charlotte newsroom. One is a drive-by shooting in Hickory. It actually was reported yesterday on 2nd Street Southeast. That's where a 22-year-old was shot and killed. We're working to get more information on that. You're looking at a map here where we can confirm that one adult was shot and killed, and we are waiting for a press release from Hickory PD. The other is a power outage in Huntersville. This happening to 4,000 customers, electricity's customers, are currently without power. This after a Duke Energy transmission line sustained an outage early this morning. And this just came to our newsroom here about less than 10 minutes ago. So as Duke Energy is aware of the situation, we're going to monitor things there. Currently, no estimate on when the power is expected to be restored. So something to keep in mind. This is electricity customers in the area from Gilead Road to Sam Fur Road, and that's 4,000 customers. So traffic lights are going to be affected, already adding to a tough commute through there
And
in
it's hot.
Huntersville. It's hot. Could that be it too?
Yeah.
Because Chris, what else can we add and attribute to the heat?
You'll have to talk to my PR agent. I am not at liberty to say right now. No, I'm just kidding, of course. Well, today, actually, we're more in the lower 90s.
Ooh, relief.
Yeah, admittedly, yesterday exceeded expectations because we didn't really get the cloud cover too much. We had a nice little spot that it didn't form. So we actually got to 98 degrees yesterday. So that's the
Nice.
fourth time we've done that. And we actually had a heat index of 103. So we're calling for a heat index of 101, hit 103, and it exceeded all the way up to 98. So I have us at 92, but again, if you have a nice mix of cloud and sunshine, and you guys show pretty cameras, can we show a pretty camera? What do we got? What do we have?
That one?
Now
Or you want traffic?
We got traffic.
Okay.
That's pretty.
I can get you a prettier camera.
Yeah, do you have any skies?
I can get you a sky.
Let's-
Give me 2
How
seconds.
about blue skies?
Let's do
Blue
good old Lake
skies.
Norman, shall we?
Let's see. Oh, see, there it is. So
There's a sky.
this is actually a great example. Carlene, thank you so much for the assist. We are going to see a mix of cloud and sunshine, but I think you're going to see a chance for developing showers and storms because the biggest threat today is not severe weather. It's thunderstorms in general. Of course, lightning comes across that, but the slow movement of some of these storms. So I was jumping around the country with my little estimator tool to show how much rain there was. Might have seen it. I'm not sure if you're going to show it here on the Impact Show. Is that New Jersey was underwater, parts of New York were underwater. Of course, we know about
yeah,
Texas,
severe
Philly.
northeast,
So yeah,
terrible.
bring that up. You have Philly, New York, Boston, Chicago. Just
our
naming,
biggest
yeah. All those
Metropolitan areas.
all those have seen 3 to 7 inches of rain, just depending on their environment. Boston was kind of the least compared to what I've seen, but I also saw a measurement that west of Lakeland, east of Tampa, a measurement of up to 10 inches of rain fell. Other parts southwest of Kirk County have received 10 inches of rain in the last couple of days. And then we had Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's all over the place that we're seeing these isolated areas. And I haven't heard really a report, but there's Petersburg, Virginia, south of Richmond. They were under a flash flood emergency earlier today. And a flash flood emergency, as we know, and we've learned here, is the worst of the 3 tiers of the flash flood warning system. It goes base, considerable, and then it goes up to emergency status where cars were underwater. And that was just a basic line of thunderstorms. And even in the near term right now, you're looking at 2 boxes that represent the flash flood warnings that are now southwest of Raleigh. This has been a slow-moving system here. I can bring up the estimated rainfall tool that's been associated with this.
While you do that, I have video from Lancaster.
All right, let's do it.
See.
Let's see it.
Here.
Yeah, see? Water overtaking
Right
it,
over
those
the road.
streams swollen. Yeah, a lot of those back roads. We see this type of flooding all the time, but I think what's been really staggering is you're seeing this all over the country. And truly, this is more of a spring type of deal. How much rain that we usually see, because you usually have the snow melt that can add to a lot of things as well. This is staggering. How many states that we have talked about epic flash flooding, and there's 2 factors here. It is slow movement from these systems. We have a stationary front that's pretty much draped itself from Texas all the way up through New York, and then you also have a tremendous amount of moisture. I was looking at the I brought up this term before, and sorry to go too meteorological on you. It's called precipitable water, or P-watts, which is fun to say. P-watts.
P-watts in the house.
Yeah, so P-watts essentially is like, say if you take the entire atmosphere and you squish it down, that would be how much rain that one point would get. And the problem with it is the highest it goes is about 3+ inches. You always see more than that, but that's like a given point. So if you have multiple points of the storm that have that, you can get up to those 3 to 9 over a couple hour time frame. Well, I looked at the average P-watts per region, and for July, the areas up in New England, New York, New Jersey, they're seeing that level at the 99th percentile for this time of year. So they're seeing way more moisture than they usually do. That's why we're seeing so many storms. And we don't have a lot of movement to the atmosphere. You don't have those quick moving fronts. That's why we're seeing this so badly right now. It's epic. It's awful.
I got
And-
Philly too here. Hold
okay,
on.
let's see
Say that
Philly.
That's Philly.
Let's go through this. All right.
That's the
I actually haven't.
Philadelphia area.
Okay.
Okay, Philadelphia.
Obviously, it's not
the
downtown
smaller
Philly, but
roads,
yes.
right, that look like streams now.
Yeah, and it's also a testament. Turn around, don't drown. Over 50% of flood deaths are people trying to challenge those waters. But yeah,
Oh,
it's
look at
it's
that.
a massive inconvenience. So look at that car. That car probably tried to challenge the water as well. And that's the thing with flooding. As quick as it can come up, as quick as it can go down. And we saw that it can lead to the worst case scenario, loss of life, but also loss of property. So if you're again alerted on your phone that you have considerable flash flood warning, just letting you know the life-threatening flash flooding is around you. If it reaches emergency status, it is get to higher ground as soon as you can. It is imminent life or death type of situation, and we've seen that a few type of situations as well. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean for sure you got to leave your house. You got to just know where you live as well. If you live in a floodplain, you should already have kind of an evacuation point, kind of know the different status that we see here. But yeah, but this is just a tremendous amount of rain. Philadelphia area, Pennsylvania, up to New York, and they're going to see that in the next couple of days. So back to the estimated rainfall, and we can actually jump over to these areas. This is what we've seen. This is just general estimation west of Raleigh this morning, up to 7 inches.
Oh, wow.
So that's why we have the flash flood warnings there. Now, this is radar estimated, so note it could be far less than this. But whenever you're seeing these little bullet points, and here I'll actually go around the country and show you what I was talking about. This was the most recent flooding. When you get to this color, that's bad. So this is why you had the flash flood emergency. That's usually a representation there. So that right there estimated about 9.6 inches of rain this morning. Let's go back up to Pennsylvania. So notice how they're just bullseyes. You
Yeah.
can literally say where the video was, because Trey, one of our producers, was I said, hey, is that video in Lancaster? And he said, yeah. And I was like, well, because easy. You see another one of these little dots. And that's the crazy thing. These thunderstorms are popping up and they're just sitting, and they're at a maximum moisture values for the atmosphere this time of year. That's over 6 inches of rain. You can't do that without there being repercussions. So that's why it's been so bad in here. I actually will do one last thing. Let's go over to Texas. I know it looks like a melted box of crayons. There's the Carolinas here. And you can even see from afar the one I was going to focus in on, Texas. This is exactly what it looked like right around Kerr County. Now, the thing with that is it's forks of rivers. It's a perfect setup. So that's why they flooded so badly and it was so historic. It also depends on topography. So it's kind of a mix of geology and meteorology that kind of lead to the worst flooding conditions. But yeah, look at some of these values. 8 inches, 6.8 inches, close to 9 inches that fell. And I think this one's a little bit more. Yeah, so it looks like 7 to 9 there. That's all over the country. So for us in the near term, I just want everyone to know we do have a low to a moderate threat for flash flooding. And you could see that does go all the way up into Virginia. That's already verified. Where we've had some of those flash flood warnings, it's kind of right along the green line. But I think it's going to be areas to the northwest of us that have the best chance a little bit later on today. It's really been interesting. I watched this morning those lines of storms. Oh, okay, this one's dying out. Oh, wow, this is continuing to go. That's just all because of the current setup that we have. And here, let me bring that up. So this is our surface map, and it's just this little trough. So since that trough is off towards the west, that's going to help promote some lift for us a little bit later on in the day. But truly, the reason why you're seeing this is because of a couple of wind directions. You had some convergence that's happening here. And then if you actually see this subtly push, sometimes when you drive in moisture with the cooler air, that's the perfect thing to fuel storms. That's kind of what happened in Helene. So when it sets up perfectly and you have things pushing against it and the atmosphere is not moving really fast, that is the perfect recipe and the setup to provide slow-moving storms that are constantly being fed that will dump some heavier rain rates. As for us right now, we don't really have a lot of activity going on. I am starting to see a little expansion happening right now here in Stanley County. I think that this could continue to connect for the rest of the afternoon, so let's get right to our future cast. I'm seeing really Now until the early afternoon, you're going to have a chance for some scattered showers and thunderstorms. We haven't really seen a lot here, but I think that you see really the best chance for Charlotte really early to mid-afternoon. Let's call it about noon to 5. You could still see some more after that, but I think the main jazz is all this type of stuff over here. Watch what happens as we work our way into the late afternoon and evening. You see those two storms kind of cross-section kind of come together, and then eventually they're going to start to work their way back to the Charlotte area. So it's, again, I think northwest of us to the Charlotte region I-77 corridor that sees the most. Then by tomorrow, we're mainly looking at some scattered showers and thunderstorms up in the mountains, and that's going to pretty much put end to that chapter. And then beyond that, we're going to see our temperatures on the rise, 95 to 97, mid to the upper 90s through this coming weekend. But there's a wild card, y'all.
Oh.
A wild card.
How
Joker?
Could be Joker. Joker's wild, however you want to put it. And that potentially could be named Dexter. If you watch the show, I hope it's nothing close to that. So the National Hurricane Center now has a 40% chance for development for this beast. It has a name that's rolls off the tongue, Tropical Wave Invest 93-L.
Oh, catchy.
Yeah, so I thought so too. I think you should just keep that. Imagine all the news anchors having to say that every time.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, if I were to put my weather money on it, this is going to become Tropical Storm Dexter. I would be very surprised if it doesn't, because there's too many things that are working for it. Now, this is expected to happen over the next couple of days. First step, this low that is just off the Florida coast, the Atlantic coast, is going to push west across Florida, giving a good amount of rain. There's some flood issues there. Once it gets into the Gulf, the water temperatures, everything is perfectly prime. Since it's an investigation, has the invest, we now have what's called spaghetti plots. Why are they called spaghetti plots? I think you can guess why.
Look at it.
So everything comes together, having it pushed pretty much into the Big Bend area of Florida, and then it'll cruise its way off towards the west. This is also a unique pattern. You don't always see this, but it does happen. Wilma did this and then regenerates over in the Gulf. Luckily, it's a little bit shallower. These are very warm temperatures, so I would not be surprised if we actually have some rapid intensification. It's not as bad as if it was later on in the season, but it still, I think, has a solid chance to develop, I think, through the day on Wednesday, and then it starts to turn. So right now, we are looking at a chance that this is going to impact Louisiana, glide up the Mississippi River, and then kind of fizzle out there. Other indications say that, hey, it could maybe try to come back in the Gulf. I think pretty much it's just going to die out. The direct impact, or we call it indirect impact, that we have here in the Carolinas, it's going to make us more humid. It's also going to drive in more storm fuel. But for day 4 of our excessive rain impact outlook, we already have a high risk in southern Louisiana for this thing to take hold. That could be upgrade to extreme, so it doesn't matter if it's going to be named or not. Truly, I think it's better if it gets a name. Yes, it has stronger winds, but people pay more attention to it. Because think about it, it might not have helped. But say if we knew a tropical storm was making landfall and it provided the rain that happened in Kerr County for Texas, people would have been on guard because of the name and saying, oh, okay, this is a tropical storm here. Maybe they would have moved people or not had them near the river. When it's the dead of night and those sneaky thunderstorms that dump a lot of rain, those are more deadly than a system like this that you might know that's coming. But regardless if it has a name or not, but I think solid chances, Tropical Storm Dexter, it looks like Thursday into Friday is going to be the time frame. So here's a better look at the surface map. Really starts to organize through the day on Wednesday. This is Wednesday at noon. Once it gets a closed center, it has winds at 39 miles per hour, and it's a warm core storm. Then we're officially calling it Tropical Storm Dexter. I think that happens at some point tomorrow. It could become tropical depression first. That could happen actually as early as the overnight tonight. But then watch, it starts to curve in. This is where it really becomes organized. This is also why you can't trust one given model, because this thing looks mean as it makes landfall. I'm not saying it's going to look like that, but if that's the case, you're talking about maybe our first hurricane of the season. And the wind models actually support that. This is the same model. Look what happens. You have nothing. You have that little blob that's showing wind gusts. Sustained winds are what categorize a hurricane or a tropical storm, but wind gusts can sometimes be 30 to 40 miles per hour or more. This says 50 mile per hour gusts by noon tomorrow, and then you're looking at solid hurricane gusts by Thursday. Yeah, and look at that.
Big
That's
swirly.
something.
That's a big swirly.
That's why you can only take, this is an outlier chance, because meanwhile you have the European model that has this big blob. It's kind of disorganized, and then once it makes landfall, landfall, kind of slides in. That little yellow-orange mark means sustained winds at around 40 to 50. That would still be a tropical storm, but not a hurricane. So that's why I wanted to just say, I'm not being reckless, just throwing a model out there. But if I were to say the best to worst scenario, the best case is that it doesn't form at all. But I don't think it's going to be the case. But I think it's going to be either a low-end tropical storm, but truly splitting the difference, looks like it could be our strongest tropical storm of the Atlantic hurricane season. And there is a chance that this quickly becomes our first hurricane of the season, impacting the southern part of Louisiana. But a lot can still change. But what can weaken this storm? There's three main things. It's wind shear, land, and dry air. The sad thing is, there's only one that's going to do it. It needs to make landfall. If it makes landfall earlier, that's good news, because the longer it sits out in the Gulf, the stronger and the faster it's going to intensify. So bringing up our spaghetti plots, what you're looking at here is wind shear. Wind shear cuts into the storm. You want the red. So where's the red? Okay, the red's over Florida. The red's in the western side of the Gulf. We got all green. So we are, by tomorrow morning, the best conditions you can have wind shear wise for the system to develop. We're still in the green by midnight tomorrow night, and before it makes landfall, it moves over to just a neutral zone, which doesn't really help it. So wind shear is not going to stop it. And as for the dust layer, no, there's no dust around this system. So what I'm saying is number 4 looks like it is coming. Our indirect impacts is going to be a chance for more moisture, but this is going to be another major story. We already seen the flooding without a tropical storm. We saw a tropical depression technically. Even though Chantal was a tropical storm, we saw the inland flooding that thing did. With the way that the atmosphere is right now, we're looking at a massive flood event from this regardless of the name and the status of it. So just wanted to kind of give you the first briefing of that before we roll forward.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen this now the last couple of weeks, that it doesn't have to be named. It doesn't have to be anything. It can just be this summer event of rain, and then those Gulf waters so warm.
So warm, yeah. Some of them were
that.
record breaking earlier on the season. I truthfully I haven't really checked them in recent days. We have a neutral Enzo cycle, so yeah, I think this is just the beginning because we typically have our first D name mid-August. So this would, yeah. So we're about a month ahead of schedule. That's not like 2020 where we had the most active season on record, but it's still up there. Yeah, so and especially if this quickly becomes a hurricane, for the worst case scenario here, it really just shows where we're headed for August and September. And I think that just the way things have been and recently, you've really got to watch this hurricane season.
Yeah, yikes. And we've had those pop-up thunderstorms in the afternoon, it's like, or even early evening too.
Early evening. We had a thunderstorm this morning in Huntersville.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that there's no hours that can escape this. And getting back to our forecast today, really now for the rest of the day, you have a chance for rain. As a meteorologist, I dislike this strongly because I like to say this window to this window, this county to this area. No, I just have to pretty much do a typical weather game saying, oh, it's going to be hot and humid with the chance of storms. Good luck.
Right.
So,
Good luck, friends.
Good luck.
All right. Chris Mulcahy giving us all the information we need to know. We have so
Maybe
many
too much.
friends and people in the Northeast that are suffering, of course, following all of the flooding situations in Kerrville. They're
We have a lot
not
of people in Florida too.
not
that
getting
we're-
a break.
we're-
Florida,
we're gonna have to look out for.
vacationing.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. And then, and now maybe Dexter this
Yeah.
weekend.
and we'll see. Yeah, I was hoping Dexter. I know that there's that one show where Dexter
Yes.
did things that were questionable nature. But yeah, looks like another one. I was looking at the list, going through it. I just hope we don't reach Wendy because I don't want Wendy to be mean.
No.
Yeah. But Karen, watch out for Karen. We'll see.
Karen's going to be,
She's gonna pack a punch.
yeah. We'll work on one letter at a time.
One letter. We'll get to D first.
All right, Chris Mulcahy, thank you very much. Here at 9:20, you are watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, and potentially that thunderstorm in Huntersville may be attributing to the power outage that we've learned about. 4,000 customers without power at this moment because of a Duke Energy line that went out. All right, right now we are following an air traffic control summit that is taking place right now. It is happening in Washington, D.C. This is the American Association of Airport Executives. And this is a one-day summit bringing together top-level officials from government, including Senator Ted Cruz and other representatives from across the country. Let's go ahead and listen in here live on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
They feel that they can do their job without being blindfolded while you're going on the highway. And then make sure that we got a good marker halfway down the runway, which is going to take up to $31 billion, is what we know. So we have to keep that pressure on to let people know that we are going to do what the Secretary asked for, which is a leap in technology. The $12.5 billion is not a leap. It's a fix right now, put the roofs on, stop everything that's been broken, and then let's continue. So all of that stuff, plus we need to go out to the future.
Only thing I would add is, we had a group of us had a meeting yesterday on a similar topic, and some of those comments were about, hey, there's a lot of stuff that we're talking about today that was brought up 10 years ago, and it's still not been implemented, which makes you wonder why, because that at that point wasn't a money issue. It might have been a policy issue, perhaps, but a lot of it was around how do decisions get made within the key organizations. I'll use the FAA as an example, but there are other organizations that have to participate. And the reality is that in a large organization, this is true of any large organization, there's lots of people who have the ability to say no, and oftentimes very few people who have the ability to say yes. So it is, to some of the earlier points that Nick and others made, we're at a point in time where from the president down to the secretary, down to our new administrator, Brian Bedford, and then his predecessor, Chris Rocheleau, who's in the game as well, all of them are stacking hands in a line to go make this happen. And I think with that level of alignment, aligned with the industry, like you see up here, there's a really good chance to get it done, but you're still going to have an individual somewhere in an organization, let's say the FAA, who's going to have to say yes to this stuff moving forward. And I think that's where there's the risk, to your question, Todd, there's the risk that if we don't have strong leadership continuing to push and make sure that when someone's inclined to say no, we find a way for them to say yes and keep moving. Otherwise, I fear that things come to a stop. And so, we will all be watching very closely and leaning in to help to make sure when someone does want to say no, we escalate that quickly and try to continue to push forward to a yes.
And I would just add that, it's great, this $12.5 billion, we all acknowledge that it's not enough, but I think, to your point in terms of the organizations that are going to be implementing, we as an industry need to understand the implementation plans. How is that $12.5 billion going to be used? When will we start seeing improvements, and where will the first investments be made? And, selfishly a bit, because I think, it's data proven, New York has the biggest impact on the national airspace. Historically, there has been reluctance to make first investments in large markets with large amounts of traffic because of the complication. But when you start in small markets and go to invest in large markets later, the large markets sometimes can't make it work because of the complications and challenges that are there. And so we need to look at the impact of the investment in each location and determine where it's best suited, because we don't know what's going to happen beyond the $12.5 billion. We all agree we need more, but we know we have $12.5 billion today. What's the plan, and what are we going to see in terms of real-time results from that?
And the New York airspace would happily take 15 of the $12.5 billion.
25, why stop?
We talked about the president's involvement, the secretary's leadership on this, the new administrator coming in, the fact that we're all locked arms on this. But what can industry and government do to collaborate even more to accelerate this innovation?
You described the Modern Skies Coalition that has us here. I think the leadership there, bringing us all together and making sure that we have no distractions as we move forward with trying to solve these issues, and they're all hard issues. Like Sarah talked about, where do you start? Where do you do the proof of concept and move forward? So I think staying in alignment is what one of the things I'm focused on, is keeping the teammates focused on where we're going next, and what are those opportunities to show not only us in this room, but to show the public that we're doing the right thing for them. And so we're looking for some early wins with that $12.5 billion.
I think Jim is right, and I think we have to use the coalition going forward as a way to coordinate. I think many in Congress think the job is done for now. We have to maintain, as we said earlier, many of us, the sense of urgency that everybody felt beginning on January 29th. And we have to now move it forward, coordinate our visits, our messaging with people. We're continuing to see people at A4A, including the appropriators, asking advice. What more can we do? Because that $12.5 billion is going to go a long way. Another $6 billion, if we can scratch it up somewhere, would allow for the Common Automation Platform to start. And we cannot afford to wait on that.
Just going back, Darren mentioned a meeting yesterday that took place with airlines and general aviation, a lot of others at MITRE. And one of the things that was talked about was the importance of understanding a commander's intent. On a battlefield, the commander says, we're going to take that hill. Everybody knows that that's the commander's intent. Whatever happens along the way, we know that is the goal. I think what's particularly encouraging here is we have the goal articulated by the commander-in-chief. The President of the United States wants a brand new air traffic control system. Secretary Duffy, Brian Bedford, Chris Rushlow, and members of Congress recognize that is the goal. And so as we move forward in that, we know we've got to invest in people, air traffic controllers, facilities, and equipment. And I think the thing that is particularly interesting at this point is a lot of that work on what we want to accomplish has been laid out through multiple years of effort, through the Next Gen Advisory Committee and others, through the FAA reauthorization bill that was signed into law last year. So we have some of the building blocks already in place. We know the commander's intent, but we can't stop halfway up the hill. And we've got to understand and help Congress understand that the momentum that has been built is to achieve a goal. And one of the things I'm excited about is we have a deadline. We've got to the end of 2028 to get this done, according to the President of the United States, the Secretary of Transportation. That gives us a clear goal, a clear timeline, and I think we have a lot of ways we can move forward. But I think the one thing that I would say, we have to have industry involvement, and that's what I really appreciate Dean mentioning. We can't just say, here's what we bought, you figure out how to use it. And so I think we have to have industry involvement, congressional buy-in, and just, you know, Darren mentioned the person in the tower, Dean mentioned it. The air traffic controllers are so critical in this. They've had a rough couple of days with the storms. They have performed admirably, as they always do, but we need to give them the tools that they can use. We need more of those controllers, people, facilities, and equipment.
Nicely done. There's Ed staff. I love when you talk about commander's intent. It made me think that Jaden Daniels is the missing person up here on the screen. We could get him to help us on this. Something you said, Nick, about the appropriators. We got this one-time hit of the $12.5 billion. We all know we need more, but reconciliation is in the rearview mirror now. Is there an opportunity in the future for another big bite of the apple, or are we going to have to do this through the regular appropriations process, which stretches that out over or at least potentially stretches it out over a longer period of time than we're probably hoping for? So what's the game plan there?
The game plan is to eke out what we can in the current appropriations process. What the House has done is pretty darn good, actually, and they deserve our praise for that. I don't think the Senate is there.
Good morning, everybody. It is 9:30 on a Tuesday morning. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Jane Monreal. We will get you back out to that air traffic control summit that is taking place all day there out of D.C. soon. But this morning, I want to talk right now about your health, because when it comes to your health, we think about physical health, of course. But as we age, maintaining physical health also comes along with it is our brain health. And we want to talk about this crucial topic with Dr. Isabelle Souffrant. She is the Chief Medical Officer for Conviva Senior Primary Care. Good morning, doctor. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for bringing this important topic to us. Why should brain health, probably an obvious answer here, but why should brain health be a top priority for aging adults?
Well, brain health should always be our top priority because it impacts our memory and our decision making, and it allows one to live independently. Cognitive health is just as important as our physical health, so remaining independent is very important. With 7 million Americans now living with Alzheimer's, this is something we need to get proactive about.
And doctor, you have your own personal connection to this as a caregiver for your own parents. How is the experiencing affecting your own perspective on brain health and practice?
Well, this one is something deeply personal for me, as my mother has Alzheimer's and my father has dementia. It's something that's very emotional, relational, and it's just deeply human. It's early detection, lifestyle changes, and caregiver support is something that we all need to realize we need to treat the whole person, not just the disease. So I am very, 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 very caring, and listen to my patients is so super important because we have to treat the whole person, not just this disease.
Yeah, that's an important point that you bring up. And so, gosh, you must be so busy too. And in practicing taking care of your patients and older adults, then what are some of the strategies you recommend?
Well, speaking to our patients is obviously super important, trying to understand if this cognitive decline is not normal and is actually something that's becoming abnormal. So early detection with our patients is key. Family involvement is key. Lifestyle changes and community support is something that we all have to do to help these patients to move forward in living with this horrifying disease.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, taking care of the body has got to be good for taking care of the brain as well. A new initiative this summer, putting brain fitness into action. Tell us about the Humana Cognitive Games, how they're designed to help seniors.
So, as part of the 2025 National Senior Games, Humana Cognitive Games is a virtual challenge focusing on brain health. It's a free event that's open till August 11th, and it's open to everybody. It's designed to give your brain a workout of online games and fun activities to stimulate your mind. You can participate in humanagames.com for fun and learn about how to take charge of your brain health.
All right. It looks like there were some video games there as well, so that might be good for any age. But doctor, many people worry about aging anyway versus cognitive changes. How can people distinguish the two, and when do they need to know when to see a doctor?
Well, some cognitive decline is normal as we age, but Alzheimer's is not. It's not a normal part of aging. It's a progressive, irreversible, degenerative disease of the brain. It affects behavior, our mood, and our physical well-being, which impacts the entire family. But there's hope with early intervention, brain healthy habits, and community support. We can make a real difference.
And before we wrap up here, what's your top piece of advice then for someone who wants to start prioritizing their brain health?
Well, staying active is key. Having a daily routine, avoiding social isolation to help prevent brain atrophy, taking on new hobbies, maybe learning a new instrument. Maintaining a healthy diet is always key to a lot of things with our health. Anything that can help support our brain, and playing stimulating games. Playing games like crossword puzzles, playing chess is a chance that helps us with avoiding brain fog and fatigue.
And like you said, it's a family disease. We have to take care of our loved ones. Dr. Souffrant, thank you so much for sharing your insight and advice and your personal connection to how we can take care of our own brains and certainly of the brains of our seniors. Again, one more time with the information for the Humana Cognitive Games.
So for everyone to just check out humanagames.com. And again, it's open to everyone.
Love that. And it's free.
And it's free.
Love that. Dr. Isabel Souffrant, thank you so much. Running again from now until August 11th. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
Take care. All right. So some good advice, always worth mentioning, taking care of our health. And certainly with that is our brain health. I'm totally into brain health these days. Right now, we want to get you back to the Air Traffic Control Summit that is happening live, an all-day, one-day summit with airport executives out of Washington, D.C. This is Live Impact News on WCNC+.
I'm going to shift into some individual specific kinds of questions, which is code for I'm going to pick on each of you individually here. Sarah, I'm going to start with you. New York airspace, pretty complex. You are suddenly queen of the jungle. You get to decide what's the solution. How do you fix it? What do you do with technology, process, people? What would you do if you could wave that magic wand to improve the New York airspace? What's the plan?
So, New York and all of the airspace across the country needs to be invested in. I talked about earlier, New York running literally the New York TRACON that Dean talked about, and now Philadelphia is part of Newark's airspace, manages over 5,000 flights a day, literally. And so when you look at that, again, from a national impact perspective, the Port Authority airports are responsible for about 35 to 4,000 of those flights a day, the rest of them coming from other regional airports in the area. We need to make investments in that infrastructure, and we need to find air traffic controllers to come in and take on the challenge of managing that airspace. The New York TRACON historically has been challenged in terms of attracting and retaining staff. It's expensive to live in New York. It's expensive and challenging to raise a family there for many, many reasons, but couple that with it's the most complicated airspace to manage. It's a really high bar for somebody to say, hey, I want to come in. And the people that come in and do that every single day, day in and day out, are quite frankly heroic because they are doing that. And like you're blindfolded. I don't love the thought of that, but they are getting blindfolded frequently. And this was happening, by the way, before the incident that occurred at the end of April related to the Philadelphia TRACON and the Newark airspace. This happens on a regular basis. The equipment at times goes out of service for various unknown reasons, and it's because it is so antiquated and needs to be improved. And so the New York facilities need to be invested in on a priority basis. Again, it doesn't mean that's the only thing that gets done, but it will have such a positive impact, not just on the airports that I happen to manage, but on the entire national airspace system. That would be first and foremost, Todd. The second piece would really be investing in reality in air traffic controllers themselves, attracting people to come and take on this really challenging role of managing the airspace in New York, doing incentives beyond cost of living. I think, again, the FAA has done a lot in that regard, but more needs to be done. And what we need to do, what we really need to do is provide access to training, real training for those individuals. And it's hard right now because on the job training requires somebody who's actively engaged in doing their job, managing those 5,000 flights a day, needs to take, the new guy and say, hey, here's how you do this and all that. And it puts an added stress on those controllers. We need to figure out ways to provide real meaningful training via simulators and things like that to lessen the burden of on-the-job training on the active controllers, because they have a critical job to do. Doesn't mean you get out of doing on-the-job training with active controllers, but we need to get our people ready to take on that on-the-job training without becoming a burden on the controllers who are there and doing that training. And so there's technology that can be provided to be able to provide that training, and I think that's where we need to focus.
Okay. Since you talked so much about controllers and that, I'm going to now pick on Dean. And our reporter friends are going to be so proud of me because I've got a two-part question for you. One, what are the top couple of improvements that can be made for the controllers? And then secondly, how do you make sure that the controllers play an important role in the selection and the implementation of new technologies that are being used?
Well, thank you for that. And I just want to mention the on-the-job training for the air. I know there's some air traffic controllers in the room. On-the-job training is the single most stressful thing that an air traffic controller does. It's live traffic. It's not slow-down traffic. It's not simulated traffic. It's real air traffic with real airplanes and real people. And the trick, and no one gets hired to be an instructor, by the way. It's something that is put upon you after you certify and you've climbed that mountain, and then they say, okay, train somebody else to bring them up the mountain. And you have to figure out how to let the person you're training make a mistake, give them an opportunity to recognize the mistake, and give them an opportunity to fix the mistake before it's really a mistake. And that, just by itself, is the single most stressful thing that an air traffic controller does. And we're going to ask more of them to do more of that. To your question, what are the two things? I think, and we kind of mentioned it up here, air traffic controllers need, we need a single automation platform. It's so different in each facility that you could look at, operate in a low-level facility of 4, 5, 6, or 7, and then say, okay, I've certified here, I'd like to move on. That's our goal, right, is to have this pipeline of people moving up to the higher level facilities. Haven't been able to accomplish that, but that is a goal. And leave those low level and go to a higher level facility and not only learn how to move more traffic in a new, different airspace, but have to learn different equipment all over again. And if those people move up to the 11s and 12s, it's new equipment again. And if a level 10, 11, 12 tower, any tower controller, moves over to a TRACON, well, that's all brand new. And oddly enough, if you leave a TRACON to go to a center, you spend over a week just learning how to use the keypad and the new equipment in the center. And when you leave the center and go to a TRACON, the same thing happens all over again. So we're wasting time training people on things that if we had a common platform across those things, we would reduce the training time. And by the way, these simulators, we've documented that they reduce overall training by 27% in time. I mean, that's a huge difference, 27%. I know it's an odd number. It could have been 30 or 25, but it's 27. And it is incredibly important that we continue to use those simulators. The other thing is reliable communication. It seems like it should be a basic thing for what we do, that we should be able to reliably communicate between the ground and the air and between each other. But we are, I think under Secretary Duffy's leadership and insistence, they are making strides in replacing the copper wire and getting us onto the IP. But that takes time, and we've seen, again, I think the Philadelphia area C is it happens every place in the country where these things, where they lose this communication. It doesn't make as much of a media splash because I think everyone has a bright, white, hot spotlight with a 100 zoom on the Newark, Philly area C to see what happens next. But those things happen all across the country. And we have to get out of having unreliable communication and the ability to communicate. And it is an issue. I know you mentioned it. Thank you for mentioning it. The recruitment, the incentive, and dealing with air traffic controllers who work in short staff. And as we hire more people and put more strain on them, and the strain is training, which is necessary. It's a necessary part of what has to happen to get to the future. I think we have to recognize that in some way, work with the administration and saying, what can we do about that? We have done some things. I know Tim Morell is out here someplace, and we've increased the OJTI pay for air traffic controllers to try to compensate that, but it is perhaps a bigger question that requires more discussion.
I want to just follow up and ask you, are you comfortable with where you think things are on the collaboration as it relates to implementation of new technology? You don't want a situation where they hand you a bunch of new stuff and say, hope you like it. You want to be more involved, presumably, in the discussion, in the sort of takeoff of what's being used and what's being brought in.
Yes, I'm sorry, and I should have come to that question, but absolutely, that is, I hate to keep going back in history, but I'm like an old penny, so here it is. We've been through a period of time where the FAA decided we don't need air traffic controller involvement in implementing new technologies. And in that window of time, they implemented exactly 0 new technologies. And ERAM, for those of you who have been maybe an old penny like me, have been around, ERAM was something that NACA came in and saved from the ashes in that window of time. It is incredibly important to have the expertise of the air traffic controllers on the front. I can't tell you how many times I have seen them come and deploy technology in that window and even after and say, hey, does this work? And have not just NACA, not just the air traffic controllers, the other side, the supervisors and the managers and the air traffic managers say, that doesn't work for us. Like we don't need a brand new digital electronic pencil sharpener. We need something different. And if air traffic controllers are in the front, and if they are part of the development and the testing, the implementation, and the training that goes along with it, I think we will reduce dramatically the time it takes to do it, and I think we will improve dramatically the success of implementing those technologies.
Jim, I want to go to you. You talked about that first part of the runway and been looking all the way to the end. How do we, as we modernize, how do we make sure that we not only sort of catch up to what the present needs are, but make room for UAS and AAM and commercial space and all of the new entrants that are going to be in the airspace in the next decade?
The first word is digitization. We really have to get from analog to digital across the spectrum. So that everything is, Ed talked about the even voice communications. We know from data how miscommunication continues to cause safety issues. So with that, we start communicating digitally on all the aircraft, on having the safety enhancing equipment that's been delayed of trying to get out there. These new aircraft that manufacturers are building and the avionics companies are working, they're trying to make it as safe as possible, and we need that airspace that allows the use of this new technology.
Thank you. Darren, I want to ask you to sort of sit back a little bit from your role as AOPA CEO. You've got this great background in IT and management, high technology. What needs to happen in your view? What are some of the things that industry's got to do right, and what are some of the things that government's got to do right to get this sort of to the promised land?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. Some I mentioned earlier about, solidifying the plan. There's a plan that's out there, but I think it would benefit from additional levels of specifics around some of the stuff I mentioned earlier. What are these early wins? How do we build momentum? How do we do it in a way where all of us are doing it together so you don't end up landing a solution that the key stakeholders, your example is perfect with the controllers, right? We can't land technologies in a way that the receiver of that is not somehow in the loop to make sure that what we actually deliver is going to serve the needs of that group. So I think that's an important part of it. I think the other part of it, and this will be true of all the general aviation, but I think also other stakeholders in the group, is there's an enormous amount of legacy technology out there, and for almost every one of those pieces of legacy technology, there's somebody out there who loves that technology, and they want that kept out there for as long as it can possibly exist, and they'll give you all the reasons why it's going to be critical to not let that technology go away. And so one of the definitely experiences I've had in my high-tech world was being willing to deprecate, eliminate old technology in service of taking the dollars and the mind share, the resources, and putting them against the future. making those hard calls is really difficult. And you have to understand the implications. If something goes away, it may have implications, and you need to think about how you mitigate those so you can transition whoever depends on that technology today, transition that into the future. But it's all too often the case, and we, in this meeting we mentioned yesterday, we talked about, if you look at 3 eras of technology, probably 70% of the energy and the dollars and the resources and the mind share go into all of the stuff that's in the past and just maintaining it and stitching it together. And it's the digital, pencil sharpener and the time and effort it takes to integrate that with all this old stuff. And so I think that'll be another big learning. This is us challenging the responses we will all likely get from, I'll get these from AOPA members that say, this technology is critical to me in this part of the country. And not just taking that at face value. Being thoughtful, don't be cavalier and just shut it down, but be thoughtful about, is that really true? And if it is true, could there be a more modern way of solving that need that would allow us to move the entire airspace system forward, digital first, common platform, some of these words we're using up here, that set us up for a much more scalable and sustainable ATC of the future?
Since I asked you to step away from your AOP role, let me ask you, since Nick did a great job at the front end talking about the obvious advantages to a new system, and understandably, he talked a lot about that as it impacts commercial air travel. From a general aviation perspective, what are you excited about? What is the big benefit? What's the part that you would really want to sort of wave the flag on with a modernized system?
Yeah, I'll use some of the more recent technologies that have come out that are still relatively recent, like ADS-B is a really good technology. It's the technology that the conspicuity technology that lets vehicles in the air see each other out there. And there was a mandate that came out for ADS-B out for certain airspace around the country, and there was a lot of resistance across the general aviation ecosystem, and we at AOPA leaned in to encourage our members to get on board with that, and they spent their own money and upgraded their airplanes. But it's now a foundational technology, a really good one that not only enhances safety, it also allows for the delivery of a bunch of in-cockpit services like traffic, like weather, and so on. And so to me, that's a good example of, if we lean forward into some of these new technologies, there's a lot of benefits in addition to safety that accrue to us. And now there's even more that are on the horizon, especially as I mentioned before, with the increasing entrance of these basically unmanned aircraft, the AAM you talked about earlier, being able to allow those aircraft to operate safely, allow them to avoid the manned aircraft, allowing them to perform services that today might be not as safe for manned aircraft to do, going into environments that aren't great for manned aircraft, search and rescue, some of the things I mentioned earlier. I'm excited about these technologies actually being able to enable a whole new variety of aircraft to enter the ecosystem and do it in a safe and super effective way.
Thanks. Ed, Nick talked earlier about the picture of the two of you testifying years ago on this issue. How do we keep Congress engaged and involved? How do we see this through to the end?
Yeah, I think Nick and I did testify together 12 years ago. I think what sometimes got missed in that is Nick and I had a common goal, which was the safest, the most efficient, the most diverse aircraft and operations. We wanted the best air traffic control system in the world. We had a disagreement on the best way to get there. I do think, looking at where we are today, as I said before, we've got a common goal. When you look at what keeps people from getting to common goals, is a lot of times people get distracted. A lot of times there become divisions on whether we should pursue that goal. There become questions about whether perfect is necessary, and perfect, as all of you know, is sometimes the enemy of the good. What we have right now, for tragic reasons, is not just a once-in-a-generation opportunity. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. For those of us who have been around multiple decades, we know we have never seen the public outcry for us to modernize the air traffic system. We've never seen the unity within the industry. We have never had a Congress that has demonstrated its bipartisan commitment just last year through passing an FAA reauthorization bill. We've got an extraordinary talent in the Department of Transportation and the FAA with Brian and Chris, and that relationship is really important. And we've got the President of the United States. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We can't get discouraged. We can't get distracted. We can't get divided. We're in this with Modern Skies. We're here today, and this is our chance to do something that is going to help the U.S. transportation system, the U.S. economy, and our national security. This is a chance to lead, and we just have to commit ourselves today, tomorrow, next year, and all the way through. We've got to take the hill.
Well said. Yeah, I think we can clap for that. Why not? All right, Nick, bring us home. You get the last word on this. The leader of the coalition, been banging the drum loudly. You talked about what the modernized system looks like and what the positive impacts are for passengers. Wrap it up for us.
Thanks, Todd. Quite simply, I think we all need to stay together and seize this moment. And how do we do it? Because people get interested in other things. They think the job is done. And the way we are going to do it is to continue to work together and coordinate our messages. And that involves good old-fashioned shoe leather. There's no way in the world you could ever get away from that in the business in which we are. The second thing is we have to take our coalition and do the things we're doing now, but keeping them up, all on the communication side, reminding the public, reminding members of Congress, reminding the administration, geo-targeting, all that good stuff that I understand so little about. Actually, I have learned a lot. But we need to keep doing that on a daily basis and recognize this is a long fight. I would make it something akin to the Tax Reform Act in the mid-1980s. Yes, I do go back a long way. And that was a 2.5-year battle that was day in and day out, and you won one day and lost something the next. But we need to keep at it, and if we all do it, and I think it's a testament to all of us, we're all very taken with this moment. We're all excited. We need to maintain that and move forward and keep other people excited, reminded, and after the goal. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, there endeth part one. Senator Cruz is due to be here at 10:15. We're going to take a short break. I'm going to ask you to stay close, because as soon as he comes, we're going to want to saddle back up. So grab yourself a little refreshment and take a break. We'll see you in a couple minutes. Well done.
Thank you
Great
so
job.
much.
Good job. Great job.
I was afraid to kind of come in. Oh,
Good morning, everybody. You've been watching live a one-day airport traffic control summit taking place out of Washington, D.C. As you may have heard, Senator Ted Cruz will be speaking there in about 15 minutes, as it is 10 a.m. here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Jane Monreal. And here at the top of the hour, we want to let you know that 50 days or less is the new warning from the president to Russian President Putin to end the war in Ukraine. Alice Barr has the latest from Washington here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
As Russian attacks on Ukraine have only increased, so has President Trump's frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
We want to see it end, and I'm disappointed in President Putin.
Sitting alongside NATO's Secretary General, President Trump announcing plans to rearm Ukraine with billions of dollars worth of weapons, including Patriot air defense systems made in the U.S. and sold to NATO allies in Europe to then hand over to Ukraine.
We're going to make top-of-the-line weapons, and they'll be sent to NATO. We're going to have some come very soon, within days, actually.
The president also setting a 50-day deadline for Russia to agree to a ceasefire or face steep sanctions on trading partners who buy Russian oil and other exports in a move designed to isolate and cripple the Russian economy.
We're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple. And they'll be at 100%.
President Trump also endorsing a bipartisan Russian sanctions bill, though may not be necessary. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanking President Trump for his support. The shifting posture a major change for a president who's long touted his relationship with Putin and promised to end the war his first day in office.
All talk and then missiles go into Kiev and kill 60 people. It's got to stop.
President Trump now backing words with weapons in a push to change the tide of a grinding war. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
And right now, an update for you on that drive-by shooting reported in Hickory occurring yesterday, where a 22-year-old was shot and killed on 2nd Street Southeast. Here is the update as we were just learning. PD there in Hickory investigating the homicide that occurred yesterday. This is at the Keating Point Apartments at 2nd Street Northeast in Hickory. At around 5:40 yesterday, officers responded to reports of shots fired, and that's where they located the victim, Kimarian Donia Peterson. That is the victim of the homicide. So this investigation is ongoing. If you have any information on this, you are asked to call the Hickory Police Department. Also had a violent weekend, as you may have heard, a couple of shootings in Uptown, including one was a mass shooting where at least one person died. CMPD held a press conference yesterday. Let's play this for you now in its entirety on WCNC Plus.
Good afternoon. My name is Crystal Fletcher. I'm a lieutenant with the Public Affairs Division at the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Thank you all for joining us here today. Deputy Chief Ryan Butler will be providing an update on the ongoing investigation into a homicide and multiple shootings that occurred in the early morning hours of July 13th in the 300 block of North College Street in our Central Division. He will share the latest details available at this time and address any questions you may have following his remarks. Deputy Chief.
Good afternoon. I appreciate everybody taking the time to come down and be with us while we try and update you on this very significant case. Obviously there's rightfully a lot of concern when an incident like this occurs. What I would like to reassure your viewers and your readers is that our detectives have been continuously working this case since it occurred early on Sunday morning. Our homicide detectives have been working in conjunction with our patrol divisions and with our Special Investigation Bureau detectives. I can tell you that as of today, we have made 2 arrests related to this case. The Violent Criminal Apprehension Team located a suspect earlier this morning, and this afternoon the Crime Gun Suppression Team, in conjunction with the Gastonia Police Department, took a 2nd suspect into custody. At this time, our homicide detectives are in the process of interviewing both of those suspects. That being the case, I will tell you that if you've talked to anyone on scene, if you've seen any video or camera footage from the scene, you know this was a very chaotic event. We absolutely believe that multiple people were involved, whether they be witnesses, victims, or suspects. And we again encourage anyone who is a viewer, a listener, a reader of your sites to have the opportunity to speak directly to one of our homicide detectives, and they can do so at 704-432-TIPS. If they would like to remain anonymous, we absolutely respect their privacy. They can provide information to Crime Stoppers at 704-334-1600. As I said, we believe that there are multiple parties involved in this incident. So although we are encouraged by the progress of the case, the investigation is by no means complete. I think you will continue to see a strong police presence although I would reinforce to you that there is nowhere you can go in this city on a Friday or a Saturday night where you would encounter more police officers per city block than you will in uptown Charlotte. The night of this incident, we had 9 officers working off-duty in that block, between the officers who were working off-duty for the clubs on College Street, or the sergeant and the officers that were working off-duty at 7th Street Station parking deck. If you've talked to people on scene or had a chance to review any of the footage from the scene, you can see officers immediately running to the scene after the incident occurred. And you can see some of the individuals who we believe are suspects in the case running past cars with their blue lights on. That is how brazen, how callous this is. If there are people that reach out to you that say that they don't tolerate this, that they will not accept this behavior, I don't think anybody accepts this behavior. I don't accept this behavior. I can assure you that none of our officers or detectives do. I want the community to be angry about this, because this is not something that anybody should have to tolerate. And that's why it's so important that we continue to work together. I mean, every time that I come and speak to you about an incident, I stress the fact that it is the collaboration between us, between the community, between our partners in the media to document these incidents, to share information, and to be able to exchange information with each other so that we know what's going on, and so that that person who's listening or watching TV while they eat dinner or get up in the morning, eat breakfast, and saw something or heard something from a friend who was out there that they think that doesn't matter, a detective doesn't need to know about that. I contend that that small piece of information could be the piece of information that we need to tie other information or other evidence that we have together. You know, you if you were on the scene, saw our crime scene investigators out there, I can tell you that our laboratory is working priority on the evidence. We had over 7 guns that were seized on scene. Those are being processed by our biology section. That ballistic evidence will be going to our NIBIN section for ballistics testing and matching. You know, everything that we do as a team, as a community, goes towards the ultimate goal, which is seeking justice for our victims and establishing the type of safety and security that we all want in the city that we enjoy. I'll go ahead and take your questions.
So, Deputy Chief, let me ask you about Encore and QC Social.
All right, you've been watching a recorded from yesterday, a press conference with CMPD addressing the violent weekend, especially in Uptown. I want to take you live right now to back to Washington, D.C. This is a situation happening here, Senate nomination hearing. The Foreign Relations Committee holding this hearing to examine the ambassador nominations for Portugal, Sweden, and the United Nations. Taking place live here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
And a 3-term congressman from Florida's 6th congressional district, where he served on the committees on foreign affairs, intelligence, and armed services, chairing the subcommittee on readiness. And it was in that capacity where I started getting to know him better a few years ago, as he and I were working together on an effort to bring back a U.S. Navy officer who had been imprisoned in a foreign country. We eventually got that done in large measure because of Mike Walsh's great work. Beyond those committee assignments, Walsh served on the China Task Force that produced over 400 recommendations for managing that delicate relationship between the United States and China. Walsh also helped to unleash the President's America First Peace Through Strength foreign policy agenda that included a truce in the Middle East and delicate negotiations pertaining to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. He's a seasoned policy mind and a skilled negotiator with a track record of diligently pursuing American interests, unapologetically and with the appropriate amount of caution and attention to detail that those things deserve. That is exactly the type of policy leadership that's badly needed at the United Nations at this moment in history. The U.S. right now, frankly, has some legitimate concerns about the UN. And to be perfectly frank, the UN is, in many respects, a disaster and a detriment to U.S. interests, where the U.S. is shouldering the financial burden of an international body only to be on the losing side of so many votes and so many policy decisions that are made at the UN. And this cannot continue. The President is absolutely correct in his decision to pause our contributions, to review U.S. participation within the bloated system, and to trust Mike Waltz with righting the ship from the inside. With Waltz at the helm, the UN will have what I regard as what could and should be its last chance to demonstrate its actual value to the United States. Instead of progressive political virtue signaling, the Security Council has the chance to prove its value in settling disputes and brokering deals. We can overhaul bloated and unaccountable peacekeeping missions where we can work to counter Chinese influence in standard-setting bodies, and we can end UN sponsorship of terrorism and anti-Semitism, standing by our allies, including Israel. Above all, the U.S. must ensure that every foreign aid dollar and every contribution to an international organization, particularly the UN, draws a straight and direct line to a compelling U.S. national interest, one that puts America first, not last. I have every confidence that Mike Waltz is exactly the right person who will faithfully apply this standard to the UN Byzantine labyrinth and carefully scrutinize our position in the financing of UN bodies, particularly those that have proven adverse to our interests. Waltz is tested, he's capable, and he's ready, willing, and able to tackle this daunting challenge at the United Nations. We need him at the UN. We need him there now, and I think he's the perfect man for this very position. I look forward to his swift confirmation. He has my unqualified and wholehearted support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Lee, for those wise comments. Senator Scott, for the good of the order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to introduce my friend, President Trump's pick for U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Waltz. I want to recognize his family. Thank you guys for being here. You must be very proud of what Mike has accomplished, and I'm glad you're here to support him. I've had the privilege of knowing and working with Mike for many years. We were both, he was elected to the House and I was elected to the Senate the same year. And it was great to work alongside him with a lot of issues that Florida families dealt with. He was always a tireless advocate for freedom and democracy, and he understands the dangers that come from appeasing dictators. We worked to ensure the likes of Nicolas Maduro and Putin could not benefit from hardworking Americans' taxpayer dollars. I know that as Ambassador of the United Nations, he will bring that same commitment and love of liberty to represent the United States in advocating for the very America First principles the American people elected Donald Trump to champion. He's a patriot from his time in uniform on the battlefield as a Green Beret to his time defending American ideals in Congress. He has proven his love, his dedication, and his willingness to sacrifice for our country. He has shown a willingness to make hard decisions, support his colleagues, and do what is right. He is a man of integrity, grit, and principle. He will exceed expectations in this role. As Senator Lee has said, we've got a lot of issues with the United Nations, and I know Mike Waltz will do the right thing. So he has my support, together with President Trump and Secretary Rubio. I'm confident that he's going to do an outstanding job representing America's interests at the United Nations. I urge my colleagues to advance his nomination quickly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Senator. Appreciate those remarks. Now, Senator McCormick is going to introduce Christine Turretti. However, he's traveling with the President in his home state and has asked me to read the introduction. I'm honored to do that. And so on behalf of Senator McCormick, quote, committee colleagues, I'm sorry I cannot be with you in person for today as I welcome President Trump to Pittsburgh. But I'm grateful to the chairman for allowing a statement of appreciation and support from my friend Christine Turretti, the nominee to be Ambassador of the United States to the Kingdom of Sweden. A pioneer in many walks of life, I first met Christine when my father was the chancellor of the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education, and she was a trustee, and she has been a dear friend ever since. As a businesswoman, she's the former chairman and CEO of the S.W. Jack Drilling Company, the largest privately held land-based drilling company in the United States. She serves as vice chairman of S&T Bank Corp. And is a former director of the Pittsburgh Federal Reserve Bank. As a passionate philanthropist, Christine has served on many nonprofit boards, including the International Medical Corps, the Andy Warhol Museum, the Gettysburg Foundation, and has dedicated energy to training programs designed to educate, empower, and advance women. Christine is also an extraordinary force in politics, supporting candidates and party organizations at the local, state, and national levels. She serves as the National Committee Woman of Pennsylvania to the Republican National Committee and was previously the co-chair of the RNC Finance Committee. She was one of the people I consulted first and relied on the most when I ran for the Senate. Finally, and most importantly, she is the mother to 3 sons, Joe, Max, and Matthew, who are the prime motivators for her drive to serve and provide a better future for America. Her astute business acumen, selflessness, and political leadership make her an ideal nominee to lead in this important post, and I'm certain she will honorably represent President Trump and the United States as our next ambassador in Stockholm. I encourage my colleagues to vote to confirm the extraordinary Pennsylvanian and American. Very good remarks. Christine, welcome. Glad to have you here. Well, we're going to proceed now, and so that everyone knows where we're going here, I'm going to give an opening statement. I'm going to then yield to Senator Shaheen, who will do likewise, and after that we'll hear 5-minute presentations. Hopefully you'll keep it to 5 minutes or thereabouts of our nominees. If you want to go beyond 5, we've got a lot of room in the record to publish your remarks, so feel free in that regard. After that, we'll open it to a round of 5-minute questions, and with that, I'm going to proceed. So, thank you again to our witnesses and your families for being here with us today, and for your willingness and your family's willingness to help you serve this country at such a pivotal time. Mr. Waltz, you come to us with a breadth of experience in Congress, our nation's military, and the executive branch, which has been detailed already here this morning. This experience will serve you well as you take the lead at one of our most critical diplomatic positions as ambassador to the United Nations. The UN is always a challenge and desperately needs reform, which we've been unable to accomplish so far. Your pragmatism and patriotism is sorely needed in New York because, as you know, there is a lot of anti-American sentiment at the UN. Anti-Semitism and anti-American sentiments are on the rise, as is the influence of China and Russia. You will be integral to U.S. efforts to stand up to the authoritarian and communist axes that seek to undermine the United States and our allies, and to ensure that our partners at the UN take burden sharing seriously. The United States has been the largest and most generous donor to the United Nations since it was created 80 years ago. Today, the United States still pays 22% of the UN's regular budget and 25% of the peacekeeping budget, even though we're one of 200 countries on the planet. America has been extremely generous, but taken for granted, obviously. The U.S. cannot continue to accept the current inequitable financial arrangements where America pays a disproportionate amount while others benefit from contributing to their fair share to peacekeeping operation, humanitarian aid, and good governance, and many times denigrate us. We must also eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse that are endemic to the UN system, from inflated procurement contracts and duplicative programs to the misappropriation of humanitarian funds and employment of personnel-sanctioned regimes. It's important that we get back to doing what the UN was chartered to do, and it has what everybody knows as mission creep, and it happens every year. The time has come to demand radical transparency and genuine reform that ensures every American dollar serves its intended purpose of making America stronger, safer, and more prosperous, and to return to the UN to its core and founding mandate of maintaining international peace and security. Mr. Waltz, I trust that you will work with President Trump on any wrongs that exist today at the United Nations. Ms. Toretti, the U.S.-Swedish relationship has been built on years of strong diplomatic engagement and security cooperation. Sweden's entry into NATO, something I worked hard on getting done, brought its highly capable armed forces and defense industrial base into the alliance and has made us stronger and safer. Sweden has always recognized its responsibility for its own defense, and now it is deepening its commitment to our shared security by committing to NATO's new pledge to spend 5% of its GDP on defense. It is important that we help further deepen that integration into our alliance alongside with our partners in Europe. This is a critical time as China and Russia are making designs on the Arctic and contesting areas of shared U.S.-Swedish interest. And as you know, Sweden is on the front line of dangerous developments in the Baltic Sea, from the sabotage of critical infrastructure to the reckless behavior of Russia's shadow oil fleet and increasingly provocative Russian military activity. And they sail merrily along. I look forward to hearing how you will help Sweden defend against these threats and advance all aspects of our relationship. Mr. Arrigo, Portugal is an important ally of the United States, and there are many opportunities for us to deepen cooperation. Portugal has made commitments to increase spending in support of NATO's defense, and the U.S. must remain committed to ensuring it reaches their goal. The U.S. must also work with Portugal to address the critical risks it faces from heavy Chinese investment. China is working with our adversaries to undermine America and our allies, most recently by its open commitment to support Russia's war against Ukraine. European allies, like Portugal, must recognize the threats posed by China and address them accordingly. I hope you carry that message with you when you go to Portugal. With that, Senator Shaheen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to each of our nominees this morning, to your families and friends who are supporting you in this effort. Thank you for your willingness to serve, and in your case, Congressman Walz, to continue to serve the country. Yesterday, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee minority released this report on China's growing influence at the expense of the United States. This report makes clear that this competition is one of our central geostrategic challenges. This is a competition that is deeply connected to our economy and to our lives here at home. Whether combating unfair trade practices and IP theft, or stopping the flow of fentanyl into our communities, or protecting Americans from spying and cyber attacks, or helping U.S. companies stay ahead in developing batteries, electric vehicles, and AI, the stakes are very high. The threat to our prosperity and security is real. But unfortunately, instead of strength and focus, we've seen this administration pull back on a global scale. As the administration fires thousands of highly specialized, nonpartisan experts and cuts America's diplomatic budget by 84%, China leads the world in diplomatic missions and is increasing its budget. And the situation at the United Nations is especially alarming. President Trump has said that the UN must return to its core mission of peace and security. But the administration is also proposing to slash U.S. contributions to the UN and eliminate the entire UN peacekeeping budget, increasing the likelihood that American soldiers will be sent into combat zones and making China the largest UN peacekeeping and financial contributor. The Chinese Communist Party must be very pleased at our efforts. They continue making long-term investments at the United Nations and international organizations, not only through contributions, but by placing more Chinese nationals in key roles. Mr. Walz, I urge you to take this threat seriously. I know you do, because you've served on the China Commission. But if we walk away from international bodies like the UN, the result won't be reforms that advance American interests. The result will be that international bodies become increasingly dependent on China, whether it involves technology and AI standards, or global health, or trade deals, or documenting human rights abuses in Ukraine. China will be writing the rules. I don't think most Americans want to live in a world where the Chinese Communist Party is driving the agenda. There remains broad bipartisan agreement that American leadership on the global stage is essential, particularly as China's expanding footprint threatens our safety and prosperity. That's why Americans need a voice not only at the UN Security Council, but at the International Civil Aviation Organization, which ensures airspaces remain safe, at the World Food Program, which prevents famines and responds to crises, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which works to eliminate these dangerous weapons, and the International Atomic Energy Agency, which helps reduce the threat of nuclear war. Put simply, we cannot shape these organizations or even push for the reforms that we want unless we're at the table. Mr. Walz, if confirmed, I hope you will work with this committee to preserve America's ability to lead, to compete and to shape the future on America's own terms. Mr. Arrigo and Ms. Toretti, because the UN ambassador post has traditionally held cabinet-level status, my remarks have focused on that role. But I also look forward to hearing from each of you how you would advance America's interests in Europe through the posts in Portugal and Sweden. Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. We'll now hear from the nominees, and we'll start with Mr. Arrigo.
Chairman Risch, Chairman Risch, Ranking Member Shaheen, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today as President Trump's nominee to be the United States Ambassador to the Portuguese Republic. I'm enormously grateful and honored by the confidence President Trump and Secretary Rubio have placed in me. I am blessed to have a wonderful and supportive family, my wife Megan, my daughters Alyssa, Angela, Amanda, my brother Jim, my sister Virginia, my nephew Freddie, and my good friend Pat, who just flew in this morning. Thank you, Senator Graham, for your gracious introduction. If confirmed, I pledge to serve my country honorably, to advance our core national interests, and to always put America first. I've been a successful entrepreneur and business leader for over 30 years. During this time, my experiences have given me deep expertise in managing teams, negotiating complex issues, and most of all, building relationships. I'm confident that my professional experience and business acumen delivered over 3 decades will enable me to represent and advance U.S. interests effectively and carry out the mission President Trump has entrusted to me. I am privileged to have this opportunity today, in large part due to my family, and particularly my beloved parents, Joseph and Frances Arrigo. My father was a visionary leader behind our family business, the Arrigo Automotive Group, which he established with my brother Jim, and that eventually became one of the top auto groups in the country. As a family business, we built our brand focused on our employees, our customer relationships, and not just a transaction, which are traits I will carry forward into this next chapter. My desire to serve as ambassador and advance our core national interests are born out of the recognition of how my family and I have been blessed by the privilege of being citizens of this great nation, and now I have the opportunity to give back to my country. If confirmed, I will use all the expertise I have developed to cultivate our relationship with Portugal and to make our nation stronger, safer, and more prosperous. Portugal is a founding member of NATO and the second country to recognize American independence. Nearly 1.5 million Portuguese Americans live in the United States, helping to generate a strong and vocal pro-American sentiment in Portugal and fostering close bonds of friendship. I've had the honor of visiting the Azores Islands for a wedding just a few years ago. I was particularly struck by the breathtaking natural beauty, the rich and diverse culinary traditions, and the warm hospitality of the Portuguese people. I was fascinated by the religious, cultural, and family values that resonate deep within my own Italian heritage. The U.S. has turned to Portugal for political and material support in many peacekeeping and peacemaking efforts throughout the years, and they have always been an enthusiastic supporter of U.S. and NATO operations around the world. Portugal's hosting of the U.S. Air Force 65th Air Base Group in Leges Field in the Azores provide a key logistics hub in the Mid-Atlantic, while providing critical support for aircraft, air crews, as well as communication services to U.S. and NATO allies. If confirmed, I promise to enhance this close historic relationship in several key areas. My first objective as ambassador will always be the safety and security of American citizens abroad. Tens of thousands of Americans call Portugal home, and 2.6 million Americans visited Portugal just last year, making the United States the third largest source of tourism in Portugal. Second, I will strengthen Portugal's contributions to NATO to ensure we can achieve peace in the region through strength. Although a trusted ally, Portugal still lags behind most NATO countries by only 2% reaching this year. As ambassador, I will work with Portugal to help increase defense spending with the Hague Defense Commitment of 5% and ensure Portugal does its fair share and contributes to more of Europe's security. Finally, I will advocate for expanding our commercial ties with Portugal and addressing the national security challenges posed by rivals like China. As the United States and Portugal's largest trading partner outside the EU, there is a significant potential to grow this economic relationship. I will also work closely with Portugal to address concerns about China's investment and influence in critical sectors and to ensure our protection of our mutual economic and national security interests. If confirmed, I will also work to balance our trade relations with eliminating the trade deficit of over $3.5 billion with Portugal by seeking more export opportunities for American businesses, emphasizing the fact that America is open for business. Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify here today. I look forward to answering your questions and, if confirmed, working closely with all of you to strengthen our relationship with Portugal and advance our core national interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Risch, Ranking Member Shaheen. It's my honor to be here as President Trump's nominee for the United Nations. First, I also want to thank my family, especially my wife, Julia, herself a fellow combat veteran and accomplished diplomat. And if confirmed, you will definitely get double the bang for the taxpayer's buck. I have my mother, Brenda, here, who has always been my rock and who bootstrapped her way through life. My daughter, Anderson, a rising senior at UC Boulder. And I have spared the Capitol Police, our 3-year-old son, Army, and his energy. I think they may have a hard time keeping up with him. But I also want to especially thank my fellow Green Berets, SEALs, veterans, and particularly the Gold Star families that are here today. We have had each other's backs through wars shaped by decisions made in this building. I promise to keep them and to keep all of you in mind as we support President Trump's focus on peace through strength. So our experiences obviously shape how we approach these positions. And for this one, my experience as a Green Beret serving alongside NGOs, development agencies, the UN, out in the field, in Africa and the Middle East, has certainly shaped my view. I've seen many organizations that frankly mean well, but execute poorly. Lack of coordination, bloated bureaucracies, poor contracting. I have literally seen over and over again hospitals that lack beds, schools that lack supplies, schools with supplies where they lack teachers, and by the time the aid filters through layers of subcontractors, only pennies reach those in need. As a former congressman, I bring the perspective of representing hardworking Americans, welders, nurses, teachers, small business owners, and if we were at a town hall looking at them, could we answer their questions on whether their money was being well spent? Many of them, frankly, in my former district would ask, should we be in the UN at all? Here's how I'd answer the question. I'd answer number one, with the UN's need for reform, but also its potential. We should have one place in the world where everyone can talk, where China, Russia, Europe, the developing world can come together and resolve conflicts. But after 80 years, it's drifted from its core mission of peacemaking. We must return to the UN's charter and first principles. Peacekeeping certainly has an important role, but also needs reform. The U.S. funds 25% of these efforts, yet we have missions in Africa. I've talked to a number of you about this during our visits. They cost billions, tens of thousands of soldiers. We've had 2 that have been around since the 1940s with no mandate renewal and no end in sight. We must press the Security Council on length, cost, clear end states, and focusing on peacekeeping, not nation building. Countering China, absolutely, Senator Shaheen, is critical. It's absurd that the world's second largest economy is treated as a developing nation in most UN agencies that gives China favorable status. China pursues its personnel or pushes its personnel into roles at all levels, including bodies that set international standards, aviation, telecommunications, IP. U.S. leadership is essential there. America must have a strong voice, and if confirmed, I'll work with Secretary Rubio to challenge this influence. We must also challenge pervasive anti-Semitism. From 2015 to 2023, the General Assembly passed 154 resolutions against Israel versus 71 against all other nations combined. UNRWA in Gaza, with its staff involved in the October 7th massacre, its schools teaching anti-Semitic hate, must be dismantled. The reappointment of Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, with her calls to boycott American companies doing business with Israel, highlights this bias. President Trump's executive order, Chairman Risch, your Stand With Israel Act require withholding funds from such bodies. And I fully support Representative Elise Stefanik's proposal for an Abraham Accords caucus within the UN. Regarding budget, the UN's overall revenue has quadrupled in the last 20 years, yet I would argue we have not seen a quadrupling of world peace. It has not been commensurate. The U.S. pays more than 183 countries combined. Meanwhile, 28 countries contribute just $37,000 and $5,000 to peacekeeping. The UN has ballooned to over 80 agencies with overlapping missions that waste resources, and if confirmed, I'll push for transparency, like what we're seeing in the Secretary General's UN 80 reform plan, calling for a 20% staff cut. It's worth remembering that despite the cuts, the U.S. is by far the most generous nation in the world. And finally, the UN's radical politicization. Such reports as, quote, stolen Native American land, reports and investigations, quote, called the George Floyd mechanism, labeling American police in America systemically racist, with input from countries like Cuba and Venezuela, it's unacceptable. Mr. Chairman, Ronald Reagan once said the UN can, quote, solve problems or spread discord. He said the choice is ours. In just 6 months, President Trump has brought dozens of hostages home, justice for our Abbey Gate Gold Star families, secured the border, denied Iran a nuclear weapon, brought ceasefires to conflicts in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Yet there is still tremendous work to be done. I'm confident under this president's leadership we can continue to spread peace and prosperity, and I'm confident we can make the UN great again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. Ms. Toretti.
Chairman Risch, Ranking Member Shaheen, and distinguished members of the committee. It is an honor to appear before you today as the nominee. Should I start again?
We heard you. Go ahead.
I'm pretty loud. It's an honor to be here today as the nominee for ambassador to the Kingdom of Sweden. I'm deeply grateful to President Trump for the trust and honor he has placed to me with this nomination. I am committed to serving the United States with dedication and integrity, and I look forward to working closely with the esteemed committee to advance our nation's interest in Sweden. It is a humbling experience indeed to be nominated for a position such as this. Yet I sit before you today prepared to share with you how my experiences in business, philanthropy, and public service have prepared me for this moment. Before going further, however, perhaps my greatest accomplishment.
You've been watching live right now the Senate hearing on several ambassador nominations. We're going to switch gears and bring this full picture with the House GOP leadership holding a press conference now. You can see House Speaker Mike Johnson speaking. Let's go ahead and listen here live on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. It's 10:38.
Because it was a turning point in American history. It could have gone the wrong way. I mean, if that assassin's bullet missed just an inch to the right, or if President Trump would have turned his head just a millisecond later, he would have died on that stage, and this country would have come apart at the seams. But now, because of all this recent success and the president's success, it's easy to forget that just 12 months ago, President Trump was the most vilified politician, arguably, in the history of the country. Democrats spent years persecuting him on all fronts. They impeached him twice. Social media platforms removed his ability to communicate with his supporters. Armed FBI agents raided his home. Democrat judges and prosecutors bent the law to arrest him, and multiple assassins tried to kill him. But God miraculously spared the president's life. I think it's undeniable, and he did it for an obvious purpose. And his presidency and his life are the fruits of divine providence, and he points that out obviously now all the time, and he's right to do so. As President Trump has lived since, with the acknowledgement every day since, he has acknowledged that Each new day isn't guaranteed to us. It isn't to any of us, and that's why we're not wasting any time. It's why he remains so strong and resilient. It's why we have such a sense of urgency. President Trump took a bullet to his head. He got up shortly thereafter. He pleaded with the crowd to fight, and then he went on to win a historic election less than 4 months later. America's changed because he survived that day. Think about everything that we've been able to accomplish and just over the last few weeks. I recounted this on the floor in the speech right after Hakeem finished his endless 8.5-hour, parade of lies. I said it takes a lot longer to build a lie than it does to tell the simple truth, and the truth is on our side. And as John Adams said, facts are stubborn things. We can't wait to talk about the facts, about the big, beautiful bill over this next year and a half or so till the election. But think about everything we've accomplished just the last few weeks. Gas prices hit a 4-year low. The last 4 jobs reports exceeded expectations. The stock market is reaching record highs. We have the lowest monthly border encounters in the history of the United States. Our NATO partners committed to spending 5%, not 2% of their GDP on national defense. We brokered multiple peace agreements and struck many more trade deals, more to come. Significantly damaged Iran's nuclear program, and on July 4th, we did sign the One Big Beautiful Bill. The President signed it into law. It's the most consequential, transformational legislation ever considered in our lifetimes, and we got it done because the Republican Party delivered on the promises we made to the American people. And the President did as well. That list that I just mentioned barely scratches the surface. President Trump has promised the most, and has delivered now, the most successful first 6 months of any president in the modern era, and many argue probably in the history of this great nation. And he's shown no signs of stopping. We won't. Every citizen in every zip code in every pocket of America will benefit from the Big Beautiful Bill. Just like the Patties explained, you'll hear story after story in the weeks ahead. Last week, my office sent a survey to our constituents. I serve Louisiana's 4th Congressional District, and we sent around a survey to Louisiana families, knowing that they're going to save thousands of dollars now because of the vote that we took on July 3rd. We asked them, how would you use the extra money? And here's some of the responses. James said he's going to use the savings to open a Roth IRA for his family. Janice is an 80-year-old widow. She said she's going to use the savings for much-needed repairs to her home. Whitney is in a retirement home. She's going to utilize the savings to help pay rent. Pamela is grateful for the increased standard deduction and will likely add these savings to a rainy day fund for future expenses. Another constituent named James said he doesn't even want the relief. He said he's going to spend his thousands. He'd like to send it back to us to, quote, use for more plane tickets for people heading back south of the border wall. All right? That's a real response. All right? So many of my constituents said they would use their savings on things like basic needs and bills and debt payment and transportation and home repairs and helping family members and adding to their emergency funds, or some of them taking a well-deserved vacation. You know what? As Jimmy said earlier, it's their money. It's not the government's money, and we're delighted to give it back to them. That's the beauty of the One Big Beautiful Bill, and you can spend it however you please. I know the stories are similar in the other 434 congressional districts across this country. Despite the Democrats' repeated lies about the bill, lower and middle income Americans are going to reap the greatest benefit. Individuals making less than $50,000 per year will receive the largest benefit from the tax cuts. Tipped and overtime workers will see no taxes on those wages. Take-home pay for the typical hardworking American family will increase by over $10,000 a year, and over 50 million seniors will now pay no taxes on their Social Security. This is real. The bill was written of, by, and for the American people. And with President Trump's signature on Independence Day, the American people will finally begin to feel relief. I'll just end with this statement and we'll take some questions. America First is no longer an agenda. It is now the law of the land. And that's what the people voted on last November to deliver, and we did it in less than half a year. So I'll take a few questions. Front row.
First of all, Speaker Vinnie Messina would have been great. So regarding yesterday's Supreme Court order on the Education Department, you've previously been asked whether Congress will assert its constitutional authority and pass legislation closing the department, which of course was created by an act of Congress. When exactly does that moment arrive? Does the President having, quote, ultimate authority over the Education Department, as was Secretary McMahon's interpretation of the order, not conflict with Congress's legal and constitutional power? At what point does this become a separation of powers conflict?
It may not surprise you. I haven't had a chance to digest the Supreme Court opinion from yesterday, whenever it was. Been a little busy, but we'll look into that. I'm a constitutional law attorney. I'm a jealous guardian of Article I authority, but I also know that for decades, the Department of Education, since its creation, the Department of Education wielded by the executive branch. I think that was the intent of Congress as I understood it back then. We have a large say in that, but we're going to coordinate that with the White House, where I'm not going to get a vision on how to reform education at the federal level. Secretary McMahon has done an extraordinary job thus far, and we're going to follow their cues on how to do that. If we see that the separation of powers is being breached in some way, we'll act, but I haven't seen that yet. So, yeah.
Mr. Speaker, your office has told me the holdup on Congress taking up disaster aid for California is that you're waiting for the White House to send an official request. The president has indicated no interest in doing so, in part because of his tiff beef with Gavin Newsom, whatever you want to call it. Will you commit to including California in any disaster aid package passed out of the House, whether it be Texas, the Carolinas, regardless of the president's feelings about California?
Well, first of all, we wouldn't know how much to commit because there's a process that this goes through. The White House and every administration and every previous Congress, the White House takes the request of the state. After the calculations have been done, the assessments, there's a multi-step process to this. They take that, they send the request to Congress, and then Congress it goes through regular order and acts upon the request. We just haven't had that in California yet for whatever reason. Gavin Newsom seems to enjoy trying to stick his thumb in the eye of the White House and the Congress, which seems to be counter-purpose if he is requesting relief. Look, we're going to do the right thing at the end of the day. We'll take care of the American people. We'll take care of our federal responsibilities. But we've not seen the calculation nor the formal request yet, and I'm going to act upon it until we do.
The formal request was sent to your office in February, sir.
I would get the request from the White House and the executive branch. That's how this works. We're going to follow the rules.
Mr. Speaker, what's the consternation among House Republicans about possible changes to the decisions bill in the Senate, and what that would be like in terms of timing as you're up against this deadline on Friday?
Yeah, the Friday deadline looms. We're encouraging our Senate partners over there to get the job done and to pass it as is. That's what we did. It reflects the intention and the view of the House. This in our view is low-hanging fruit. This rescission package is, you're talking about funding for USAID, the egregious abuses that the DOJ analysis and audits uncovered. We've got to claw that back. The American people, everybody demands that. We can't fund transgender operas in Peru with U.S. taxpayer dollars, right? So come on. The NPR and PBS components this is, in our view, the misuse of taxpayer dollars. They're biased reporting. They're not objective. They pretend to be so. They have for a long time. And the people don't need to fund that. I mean, we're in an age of, you all know, you work in the industry. I mean, media is so multifaceted now. There's so many avenues and areas for information. And while at its origination, NPR and PBS might have made some sense, and maybe it does now, but it shouldn't be subsidized by taxpayers. So these are simple questions to answer for us. The House has acted appropriately, and I hope the Senate will do the same. I've urged them, as I always do, to please keep the product unamended because we have a narrow margin and we got to pass it. But we're going to process whatever they send us whenever they send us, and I'm hopeful that it'll be soon.
What's the safe solution if you're unable, though, to pass those things? So, I mean, the idea that Republicans talk about cutting the spending, and if there's a conflict, then you can't get it done through that deadline?
I don't accept defeat, Chad, so we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Homeland Security Committee Chair Mark Green will be leaving on the 20th. Have you talked to any of the contenders, and who can succeed him? How much do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I've talked to all of them, and we have an embarrassment of riches in the House Republican Conference. We have very highly qualified people who are willing to step up. They're all highly respected among their peers, so it'll be quite a horse race there. And I'm not going to put my thumb on the scale and try to influence that one way or the other. We have a here. We respect the process, and that we have a steering committee that's composed of leaders and representatives from across the conference, and they'll hear the presentations of the candidates, and then they'll make the due decision. But it's going to be a tough race because there's some tough people, great men who step forward, and we'll see how it shakes out. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And you've been watching live a press conference from the GOP leadership talking about the One Big Beautiful Bill as House Speaker Johnson spoke to many parts of the bill. It's a big document, speaking on the latest as they talk about their their victory in the House and the Senate with that bill. All right, it is about 10:50 right now. Just want to remind you that WCNC Plus, the app, is available for your mobile device, Roku, Fire, and Apple TV. So we appreciate you downloading the app and sharing and spreading the word that we are here live for most of the day, where you can get your news on a local, national, and international level, as we've been following a lot of the country's latest legislation and nominations, including the one for Mike Waltz to head up the UN. It is President Trump's nomination, his pick for the head of that department. So we'll continue with that for a little while longer here on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
The United States is present, able, and willing to counter the PRC's growing influence at the UN.
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. I appreciate the question. I agree it's absolutely critical. And if confirmed, yes, I agree. I will take just a second to point out, under the first Trump administration, under the 2018 National Security Strategy, he really led the pivot, which I think pivoted the entire national security apparatus in Washington, D.C., away from the Middle East, away from counterterrorism, not as a zero-sum, but to focus on the near-peer threat that China absolutely is. And then just in this administration, Secretary Rubio's first trip was down to Panama to address what we've all heard, hearing after hearing, an encroachment on the Panama Canal, a strategic waterway. Panama is now the first Latin American country in decades to back away from the Belt and Road Initiative. The malicious behavior, but also the potential of the Chinese Communist Party, the malicious behavior, the potential of the relationship, I should say, will be top of mind for me. I know it is for the Secretary and the President.
I agree with you, Congressman. That's why I find it so puzzling that there's been no coherent strategy for how to address China within this administration. There's no consistent messaging. If you look at where China is moving in, where the United States has moved out, within days of our shutting down of USAID and foreign assistance programs, China was already labeling the United States as an unreliable partner within months.
And we're going to break away from the nomination hearings in Washington, D.C., because today we have made it official. It is a weather alert day. So back with us here in the Live Impact studio, before we let it go to the Charlotte Today show at 11, is our Chris Mulcahy. Why are we weather alert today, Chris?
We're weather alert not just because we like the color red. It's really because of the flash flooding. And earlier on of the 9 o'clock hour, we kind of went around and just showed where we saw some of those heavy rain totals, where we saw up to pretty much 5 to 8 inches spread either across Pennsylvania, New York. There was also some signs of it in Virginia. So we're under that environment that slow-moving thunderstorms are going to be a possibility. And you can't always do that saying, hey, you have slow-moving thunderstorms. This happens all the time, but we have the right environment. We have a low to a moderate threat for the Charlotte area. We've already seen flash flood warnings over in Raleigh, so we just want you to be weather alert for the afternoon and the evening. It looks like the morning rain that we saw earlier, I think, is good to go. So let's go right to the radar. Here's what's happening right now. That one system is now kind of fizzled out overall. I apologize. I'm on weather 1 today. That's an appropriate graphic, though, because I noticed the 60%.
That'll show us a little bit, yep.
Yeah, so it's like communication's key.
Okay.
So sorry about that. So you saw that rain system that was producing some flash flooding is now just giving light to moderate rain. That's represented by the darker green to the light green over Sanford. And there's one little blip right around Wadesboro. Now I think it's really over the next couple of hours that we're going to see a redevelopment here. So those flash flood warnings still remain until noon for that area, but no rain's going to impact them immediately. What's interesting here is the surface map showing that little dash line. It's almost like train tracks. That's where we're going to have 2 different flows that are going to converge over that area, and that's going to allow for more storms to redevelop closer to home. I think especially for Charlotte, we're seeing on and off scattered storms through the afternoon. Might take a break for more can come a little bit later on in the evening. But again, we are a weather alert today, really for the afternoon and the entirety of the evening. I wish I could narrow it down, but we've already seen these all over the place. And we can kind of specify some time frames for you and pick where you live here on a Futurecast in a second. But we're not talking about severe weather. I'm not saying that you won't see a strong storm. Likely it might be just a special weather statement that's usually for a severe storm. And then you just need to stay updated. You're already doing it right now, WCNC Plus.
That's right.
You talk a lot more here. We're also going to have Becca in here where they have that elongated show right around 6:30. But we've seen multiple flash flood warnings and even a flash flood emergency this morning up in Virginia. Yeah, so we just want everyone to be weather aware that that's a good possibility, especially if you live in a floodplain. So here it is. Excessive rain impacts. We have a low to a medium threshold for this, especially up in the foothills to the mountains. That's where I think everything is going to be really energizing along that dash line, that trough that I mentioned. So here it is. Looking at our Futurecast, these are not particular numbers, but you see the blues to the purples to the reds. That's representing up to about 1 to 2 inches of rain with a localized maybe 3+ inches of rain. I think that just as we've seen, it's those little dots. That's where you see the flash flooding, where oftentimes whenever you do the estimates for the 1 in 1,000 year flood event, that's a 0.1% chance of happening. I'm not saying that's going to happen now, but that's for a given location that you have that. Of course, some have a better chance than others just depending on the geology of the area. But for us, we're already seeing that line re-trigger as we're having more of that heat and humidity. We've seen a nice mix of cloud and sunshine. So this, what you're looking at right now, is about 1 o'clock. So I think really from 1 to 5, we're going to see scattered showers and thunderstorms in between the I-40 to the I-85 corridor. Some of us are going to miss these entirely. That's been the trend. We've had many of us that have gotten over 2 inches of rain over the last few days, while others haven't even seen a drop at their house, or maybe just some drops that didn't add up to too much. But notice by 5 o'clock, we're starting to see more of a cluster of storms up in the foothills. It's at this point that I think you're going to have the best chance for training storms, the most widespread activity, and that's why this area is in the yellow that I showed you for our excessive rainfall map. Meanwhile, areas southeast of Charlotte, not nearly as much rain today. Then things start to glom together. Some clusters could last a little bit longer, so you're really looking at anywhere from Hickory down through Shelby over to Gaston County. Could realistically pick up 1 to 2+ inches of rain. It's the 3+ in a short period of time that really lead to those flash flood warnings. And if your phone pings, you know that you have some life-threatening flooding within your area. So know your area, know where the high places are, and just stay engaged. Once you get to the latter part of the evening, I think by 10 o'clock, you're still having some heavier rain, but then the last of this is starting to fizzle out. You still could have an overnight thunderstorm heading into tomorrow, but then we have more rounds that are possible late day, those typical isolated thunderstorms, and then we do it again on Thursday. If I were to pick a day that I think is staying dry for Charlotte, that's Thursday. I think you have rain in the mountains, but right now that looks to be the day to do anything outside that you need dry weather, or at least your best chance. So only a spotty 10% chance that day. And then outside of that, we start to see those scattered thunderstorms return for your Saturday and Sunday. And then for the near term, we're also going to be watching for the newest update from the National Hurricane Center. The last update that they had at 8 o'clock was that this was a 40% chance for development. They still haven't come out with their new one. I think it'll likely be the 2 p.m. update that will have a little bit more information. And then last but not least, we also have a look at a bigger warming trend that's going to end this. So you can expect that really, I think it's by the back end of the forecast, we leave the lower 90s in the rearview mirror, and then we're talking about 95 to even up to 98 degrees through this coming weekend. So we turn the heat back on, triple-digit heat indices. Even today at 92, I still think that you could feel as much as 100 degrees. So not really taking too much break from the heat. Just stay weather alert, especially with the slow-moving thunderstorms, because we are primed for a few flash flood warnings, just depending where you are.
At what time especially?
I would say especially for the foothills, primarily from about 4 to 9. For Charlotte, I think it's really going to be about noon to 5 that we have the isolated slow-moving storms. But here's the deal. Being honest with you, storms could pop anytime once you hit noon to about midnight. It's a wide window. It's inconvenient. It's like the cable company saying they'll be here some point during the half a day.
Some point this week.
Some point this week, you can expect it. But that's the main reason why, is because these storms are really unpredictable. They have a mind of their own. So just stay weather alert. But I think primarily if you do that, Charlotte for the afternoon, afternoon, more late afternoon to evening for the Hickory foothills area, even including Shelby to Gaston County up to Lincoln County as well.
All right, very good. And we will have reports here live, top of every hour.
Yep.
During live Impact News, as well as WCNC Charlotte.